Music, my entire focus is on having children because I wanted them so much. And, lovely woman. For you, what is it? A beautiful woman for you. After shining at the Venice Film Festival for 2 weeks, Sophia Loren had to have emergency surgery. Her toilet fall was more than simply a slip. It was a catastrophic incident that resulted in several broken bones. When her agency stated that recuperation might take time, it seemed overly cautious. Since then, although she remained out of the public eye, phony death reports have proliferated online. However, if you pay close attention to the video, you'll see how firmly she holds her walking stick. The lady who once claimed that age was simply a number has changed. Costanza, Sophia, under a veil of shame. Brita Villani Ciccoloni was born in Rome on September 20, 1934. She was delivered at a hospital that wasn't typical. Unwed mothers were the target audience. That in itself made her birth a scandal in 1930s Catholic Italy. Romilda, her lovely mother, was frequently compared to Greta Garbo and had aspirations of becoming an actress. She was unable to conceal the fact that her daughter was born out of wedlock, despite her good looks and intelligence. Sophia had that label for years. There was even a reputation for the hospital. Society discreetly sends its fallen women there to give birth in secret. Whispers and condemnation pervaded Sophia's existence from the moment she took her first breath. Riccardo Colon Murillo, the man who started it all, didn't simply leave. He disappeared. More significantly, he was already married when he began dating Romilda. Despite having previously worked for the National Railway, he declined to marry her or even stay after she became pregnant. He left the infant and Romilda on their own. Sophia only had 3 encounters with her father, once at the age of 5, once at the age of 17, and one final time in 1976. As he lay dying, the last encounter didn't last long. She never forgot what he had done, even though she claimed to have forgiven him. He didn't want to be involved in her life, even when she rose to become one of the most well-known actors in the world. Later on, Sophia took an odd action. She asserted that her father was of noble descent. She used names like Vic, Countess of Pudoli, and Marchioness of Licata to refer to herself in her autobiography. It made little difference if the allegations were accurate or not. It was a form of story rewriting. She transformed herself into an aristocratic person rather than the unwanted kid of an unfaithful guy. It was how she transformed suffering into pride. She said that her dignity derived from the same man who had rejected her. It was like placing a crown on a previously disregarded child's head. With Sophia, the suffering continued. Their father wouldn't even sign her birth certificate when their younger sister, Maria, was born in 1938. Maria therefore had no legitimate claim to his name. That decision's brutality left a lasting scar. After achieving success, Sophia spent her money on something more valuable than notoriety. For Maria to be officially recognized, she paid Riccardo. Although it was a low-key transaction, it was crucial. Finally, Maria could go by the Ciccoloni name. Sophia wasn't merely filling out paperwork. She was taking this action to spare her sister from having to endure nasty jokes or constant reminders that their father had turned her down. The family had been forced to the brink by the conclusion of the war. They had nothing when they returned to Patti. Luisa, Sophia's grandmother, converted their living room into an unauthorized bar where she sold homemade cherry wine. This was more than a side project. They managed to survive that way. Rialda was a pianist. Maria charmed patrons with her singing. Sophia scrubbed dishes and waited tables. Even though she was just a teenager, she already understood what it meant to work in order to survive. American servicemen, primarily GIs stationed nearby, began to flood the area. They introduced food, cash, and tales from a different planet. The war struck once more one day in 1944, when Allied planes bombed Poti. Sophia was 10 years old. A shrapnel fragment pierced into her chin as people fled for cover. A lasting scar was left behind. The horror never left her. Even though she lived, she was unable to sleep in the dark, even as an adult. Makeup professionals put a lot of effort into concealing the scar during her acting career. However, she was always aware of its presence. She carried that moment, that explosion, and that scar, with her molding not only her face, but also her soul. It provided her with a source of inspiration for poignant movie sequences, particularly when she portrayed women ripped apart by conflict. Due to its proximity to a munitions industry and a military port, the village of Poti was attacked. Multiple times, the area was repeatedly targeted by planes. Every day, they lived in constant anxiety. Families fled to train tunnels, which were rat-infested, chilly, and dark, to hide when the bombs came. Sophia spent a lot of her early years there, huddled in the dark, hoping the explosions would stop. Solfatara, a nearby volcano, was another cause for concern. People thought the entire area would explode if it was struck. Sophia lived in continual fear for 5 years. Not only of conflict, but of total devastation. Her mother had had enough. Following the shrapnel incident, she fled to Naples with her 2 girls in tow. They abandoned everything. They had to plead with distant relatives for lodging once they arrived in the city. It was humiliating in addition to being uncomfortable. Everyone is fighting for their lives as several families are squeezed into small apartments. Sophia witnessed her mother sobbing as she begged for food and a place to stay. The future Oscar winner was simply another homeless child, watching her mother plead for help. The war was over by 1945. However, the harm had already been done. They found their village in ruins. Jobs had disappeared. There wasn't much food. The illicit cherry liquor bar reopened. 11-year-old Sophia worked every day. She did whatever it took, including cleaning and serving. Hunger was an everyday issue. Dry bread was all they had at times. On more nights than she could recall, she went to bed feeling hungry. Even so, she developed survival skills. She learned how to deal with the boisterous, inebriated, and violent adults in her immediate vicinity. She would eventually be able to handle agents, producers, and all the demands of celebrity because to her resilience, she was a shy, scrawny 14-year-old from a bombed-out village close to Naples. However, things changed when Sophia Loren entered that beauty pageant in 1950. Not even her given name was being used. Wearing the Lazio candidate number 2 sash, she went by Sophia Loren. No one had high expectations. Nevertheless, she managed to place in the top 3. They handed her something equally significant even though she didn't win the primary title. 1950s Miss Elegance. There was prize money for that championship, and everything changed because of the money. It provided a means of escape from poverty and a return to Rome for her and her mother Realda. That was more than just a pageant to them. It was a way out. They had survived World War II bombing assaults only a few years prior. The scar on Sophia's chin was caused by one of those bombs. She used to get made fun of by her classmates. They gave her the name Toothpick. However, she was no longer a joke that evening when she was wearing heels in hope. She was becoming well-known. Everything altered once more in September 1951. A year later, she was only 16. His age was 37. At another competition, Carlo Ponti, a well-known film producer who already had a wife and 2 children, saw her sitting at a table with friends in a restaurant close to the Colosseum rather than on stage. He was unable to look away from her. When he first asked her to compete, she declined. He therefore used a waitress to deliver a second letter. She said yes this time. For Ponti, her placing second was sufficient. That same evening, he made her a 7-year film deal offer. It was for her career, he said. However, he acknowledged years later that I have done everything for love of Sophia. His impact was immense. He gave her advice on what to read, how to talk, and how to dress. He was establishing more than just a profession. He was shaping someone. Her name was the first thing he altered. Sophia Ciccolone's voice was too authentic, too Italian, and too working-class. He therefore created something more marketable, something that could be sold globally, in collaboration with another producer, Grado Lombardo. The name Sophia Loren, a play on Swedish actress Mara Tuin, sounded glitzy, global, and classic. She had previously gone by Sophia Loren, a nickname that was made fun of because of her ability to resurrect the dead. However, she was now undergoing a total brand makeover. The Pody girl had vanished. Someone made for the movies took her place. Hollywood was calling by 1956. Unusually for a foreign actress, Paramount Pictures offered her a 5-film contract. Although she had 6 years of experience in Italian cinema, this was her big break. She began making movies with the deal, including Houseboat in 1958 and The Pride and the Passion alongside Cary Grant and Frank Sinatra. The budget for one of those films was $3.7 million, which was a significant amount at the time. America quickly fell for her. She wasn't simply another European beauty. She was able to act and had presence. Ponte was developing a persona behind the scenes as the world observed her development on film. Marilyn Monroe wasn't Lauren. She wasn't delicate or blonde. She was unapologetically sensual, bold, and dark-haired. She had issues because of her height and Boy on a Dolphin. To look taller, Alan Ladd had to stand in trenches. It didn't matter. Though people loved her, her movies were profitable. She was also earning millions of dollars a year by the end of the 1950s, making her the highest-paid actress in Europe. If it meant breaking the law, Ponti would stop at nothing to marry her. He set up his wife's covert divorce from Mexico in 1957 and his proxy marriage to Lauren. They did not go at all. They were replaced by 2 attorneys. They discovered their marriage through a newspaper article. Ponti believed that the divorce from Mexico would be accepted. He was mistaken. It was rejected by Italy. An Italian court ruled their marriage unconstitutional in 1965. It was a legal catastrophe that resulted in thousands of expenses and years of legal disputes. In 1962, the situation deteriorated. Italy accused them both of bigamy. They might have spent up to 5 years behind bars if found guilty. The charges were submitted by a random Milanese housewife called Luisa Brambella. She believed that public figures ought to answer for their actions. All at once, Loren and Ponti found themselves on the run in their own nation. They were forced to reside overseas. "We should have been on a honeymoon," Loren subsequently remarked, "but I just remember crying for hours." Only in 1966, with the Prime Minister of France's personal approval, did they find peace by obtaining French citizenship. Despite the anguish, Loren persisted. She played a character who tore open old scars in the 1960 film To Women. That dread was nothing new to her: tunnel concealment, famine, and bombings. To be ready for the part of Cicera, a mother attempting to keep her daughter safe during a conflict, she delved deeply into her past, her mother's bravery, the dusty odor, and the terrifying evenings. Under Victoria Dica's direction, it turned into her most impactful performance before history. She took home the Best Actress Oscar on April 9, 1962. For the first time, an individual in a non-English language film received the Academy Award. Her age was 27. She defeated icons like Natalie Wood and Audrey Hepburn. She didn't even attend the event. Too anxious to handle the attention, she stayed at home. She received the call with the news from Cary Grant. A barrier that had existed since 1929 had been broken by her. She was more than simply a star. In Italy, the star was her. For Best Actress, Loren took 7 David Donatello trophies. Nobody else is comparable. Nearly 60 years separated her first victory in 1961 from her most recent in 2020. At age 86, the life ahead achieved their most recent victory. Her son was the director. She portrayed a survivor of the Holocaust. That evening, she declared, "I cannot live without cinema," and the crowd agreed. However, she collaborated with Victoria D on some of her best pieces. At the age of 20, he recognized something in her and cast her in The Gold of Naples. She performed as a pizza vendor who misplaces her ring, a minor part, but one that will never be forgotten. She found emotional depth, particularly in Two Ladies. Thanks to Dica, they collaborated on Yesterday, Tomorrow, and an Italian-style wedding. Her reality was revealed under his supervision, and their pictures helped to define the heyday of Italian cinema. Morello Mastroianni came next. The screen was illuminated by their chemistry. They collaborated for the first time in 1954. Together, they produced over 10 films over the years. Loren famously remarked, "I never even read the script when I was given a movie with Morello. I simply said, yes." He was never taught his lines. "What am I supposed to say now?" he would ask when he arrived. However, it was successful. They had an electric charge. A Special Day, their last outstanding collaboration, revealed a new side. Just a simple relationship, no romanticism. She was a weary homemaker. He lived next door to her and was gay. They were also unforgettable. When Cary Grant fell deeply in love with Sophia Loren, he was 53 years old. She was only 20. In 1957, it took place on the set of The Pride and the Passion. It didn't seem to matter that Grant was already wed to his third wife. Loren's youth, elegance, and attractiveness drew him in. While filming in Spain, their affair began in secret.